The Territorial Army has been given the strongest indication yet that it could be in for a name change. Under plans for a major overhaul of the TA, known as Future Reserves 2020, the TA could become the Army Reserve. In a moment, we'll look at the significance of such a change, but first, our reporter Charlotte Cross looks back at where the TA began more than 100 years ago.
Future Reserves 2020 will be the biggest shake-up of the Territorial Army since it was formed in 1908. It was originally known as the Territorial Force, but in 1920 the name was changed to better reflect its role as a trained and equipped reinforcement for the regular army. Made up of units drawn from people living in the same town or village across Britain, the Territorial Force saw action in France during World War I. Just before the outbreak of World War II, the government authorised the duplication of all Territorial Army units, doubling the size of the TA, which was then mobilised and its units absorbed into the British Army. In the post-war years, the TA reverted back to a part-time reserve force. Today's Territorial Army is around 18,000 strong, but its home defence legacy is in the past. Since 2003, 27,000 reserves have seen active service overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. Today's territorials, though, are facing an uncertain future. The regular army is being cut by 20,000 and a beefed-up, better equipped and more professional reserve is expected to fill the gap by 2020. The government is investing £1.8 billion in the reserves, and the Defence Secretary has said the days of the so-called weekend warrior amateurs has to end.
So, Charlotte, how significant would a name change be from the TA to the Army Reserves?
Well, it's very significant indeed. This isn't just a rebranding exercise to get rid of the TA's old Dad's Army image. This is about a fundamental shift in what the reserves do. Reservists are no longer just in the background as a force of last resort. They're about to become an integral part of the regular army, working alongside them, training alongside them with twinned battalions. So a name change to the Army Reserve would reflect that. As I understand it, a final decision has not yet been made and it would require some legislation, but Hammond's comments on the Andrew Marr show at the weekend are the strongest indication yet that a name change is on the way.
In my head, they're the Army Reserve, and they will be an integral part of the regular army. They will train with the regular army. They will do overseas training. Already this year, we've got a number of overseas training deployments that members of the TA will be engaged in. So I would like to see them renamed. It will take legislation, but when the opportunity for legislation comes along, we will change them.
So what other changes is the TA facing?
Well, we can't be completely certain about that until the government's green paper is published in a few weeks' time. But what we do know is that the TA is about to face changes to its terms and conditions, and TA soldiers will become more like part-time workers. That will need employer support, and in fact that's the biggest challenge facing the government at the moment, is to really get the employers on board to support the country's reserves. The government said it's not interested in soldiers who want to play at being soldiers, so for those in the TA it will start to feel more like a profession than a hobby.
All right, Charlotte, thanks for that.